Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a chat about the upcoming updates. I feel like we haven't really had a sit down and just give my feelings on how it's actually shaping up. Obviously, we had the additional dev server, which was kind of interesting to see. I'm guessing they wanted to fix a bunch of bugs or change a bunch of things, so therefore people could kind of put in more bug reports or see what was kind of going on. But I would actually say the dev server was in a pretty good spot. Most of the new mechanics seem to work pretty well, especially all of the radar mechanics. I think they've kind of nailed down pretty well. There was a few bugs here and there with like the sight stuff, but mostly it was actually in a pretty good place. And also, they changed, obviously, the Saab F-35. They added that in properly. They fixed the Z-10s. And then also, a lot of the armor modules on the big battleships were fixed as well. There's still some controversies around reload rates when it comes to some of the larger ships, which is completely fair, because, I mean, reloads in general in War Thunder don't make a lot of sense, and a lot of it just comes down to balancing factors, which is not something that people want to hear, and generally not something that I think works very well, especially at the higher tiers of naval, but it just kind of is how it is. But I've seen a lot of kind of aggression last week when it came to the SAM systems, and this week it seems like the aggression has at least kind of tempered down a little bit, which is quite good. And the problem that I see quite a lot of the time is, as I said last week, is people getting annoyed at stuff that might not even exist. And then you get kind of two camps where you just get people who find other things to get annoyed at. And then you get the other camp which says, well, because people were annoyed at it, they fixed it. And unfortunately, that kind of idea is probably about 10% true and 90% false. Usually when it comes to these fixes, it's down to bug reports, and it's also down to the fact that the developers were already focusing or basically fixing it before it gets to the dev server. So that's why when you have a look at the dev server, every day nowadays you actually have updates to it because they're already pre-planning, to fix certain things that may be on it. So what they're putting on the dev server is what is stable, not what is fully fixed. And then once they stabilize everything, it then gets put to the dev server. And then once everything is stable enough and fixed enough, then it goes to the live server, which is what we've seen with this. So hopefully people are a little bit more happy with the update now instead of getting as aggressive as they were being last week. It was a little bit worrying. And I also would like to point out, if you remember, a lot of this aggression and annoyance was built off the fact that a official quote-unquote leaker ended up saying that Gaijin weren't actually going to do anything about these SAM systems. That what was actually going to happen is they were just going to kind of wait and not buff them at all or not make them realistic, and then wait until anti-radiation missiles come around and then maybe change them. Well, that was all false and wrong. That was just complete hooey. But people believed it because it supposedly came from a source that was supposedly trustworthy because they were involved with people who have been right about stuff in the past. So you have to be very careful of this stuff when it comes to War Thunder, right? Because you have a scenario, especially on the internet, where it's very easy to build narratives and it's very easy to care about certain things and not care about others, which is, it's been one of the issues that I've had with War Thunder for the longest time, where basically there is like sets of the community that are very interested in certain things and it's impossible to get them interested in another area of the game. It's like the Russian bias thing again, right? Where it's like, oh, obviously the game is biased towards Russia. If you have a look at the Panzer and you have a look at some of the high-tier helicopters, but then you have a look at some of the other helicopters now from other nations with their fire and forget missiles, with their additional systems. Or when you look at, let's say, I don't know, the top tier MBTs, where obviously the Germans and the Swedish have the best MBTs by far, the SCRV 122s and also the Leopard 27. They massively outmatch the Soviet MBTs by a country mile. But nowadays, it doesn't matter because previously they may have been slightly good. Now the thing shifts to the KH-38 as a individual thing, even though the tech tree is broad as all hell and you have like millions of things that are just nowhere near their general capabilities. So It's just the same kind of idea, right? It's just people just focusing on very, very specific points of things instead of looking at the overall picture, which is fine because War Thunder nowadays is huge. And because it's so huge, you're going to get people who are just playing individual things, and that's all they can play because of time, or they want to play, which once again is completely fine. But you've got to be very careful of not getting sucked into all of these issues or all of these things that people want you to care about. It's much better just to kind of focus on what you want to do and kind of go from there. I think generally that's, a much better way of actually enjoying the game instead of just feeding on the negativity, which unfortunately wanders around. And negativity sells. That's definitely something that's been true for many years now. And also at the same time, it's one of the ways to get people together, to bring people together. It's why a loving society doesn't really work. It's actually much easier to point the finger at a X group of people and saying, hey, these people are the bad people, because then you get all the other people to unite around the idea that that thing is bad. If you see it from War Thunder's or the War Thunder point of view, that's like X vehicle is bad, or X nation is bad, or why won't they fix X vehicle, why company bad? And it's just the same deal. So let's have a chat about, do I think this update was delayed or anything like that? Because that was something that was going around. No, I don't think so. Like when you have a look at when updates are released for War Thunder, this is usually the time where the June update comes out. And also we haven't had any devlogs today. We haven't had any news today. Nothing like that, which generally indicates they're probably going to release it tomorrow, but they could easily do it next week too, and it would still be in the bracket of the update season. So has anything really changed in that front? Probably not. It basically just kind of feels like the same, so I wouldn't really worry about any of that. I'm sure you'll be able to play with the new toys soon. I will say one of the criticisms I do have of this update, though, there is so many premiums. Like there's a crazy amount of pre-order premiums. Like when you actually have a look at it, I don't know if we've ever had a update with so many premiums. Like usually when they add in a new rank, they also add in a bunch of new premiums, but they haven't really done that this time. They've only added 2 of them, the Agonizer now and the Sevastopol. Everything else is things which are additional on top of it. So there's just a million of them all around the place. And some of them I feel like would have arguably been better if they weren't premium. Stuff like the L39 I think would have been pretty cool as a standard tech tree one, because it is kind of interesting. And also, Russia is kind of doesn't really have that interesting vehicles around that BR. So it would have been nice to see that in the tech tree. And then also you have like the triple packs, which are very good value, but also at the same time, a lot of premium vehicles on top of what's coming. Now, luckily, there's a lot of standard tech tree stuff as well, including the Swiss air tech tree, which I feel like hasn't got any love at all. And after this last set of dev servers, I feel like they're in a pretty good place. And that's going to be one of the areas which is really, really enjoyable to do. But this dev season, I feel like, has been quite long. It's been, from the start to the finish. There's obviously been the leaks that were there. Then we've had the 2 sets of dev servers. We've had a lot of dev blogs, and then a lot of information kind of flowing about all over the place, which is good. But at the same time, it's been very hard to deal with the animosity side of things. And I'm trying to work out, at least in my brain, how I'm going to try and figure that out. Like, what am I going to do in the next dev season to try and stay away from this? Because it stems from 2 areas. Number one, it stems from people who main a nation and get annoyed when their nation isn't as powerful as other nations. And then number 2, it stems from modern vehicles not being historical compared to a certain set of values that are impossible to prove. So maybe, at least when it comes to the content stuff and when it comes to talking about those stuff, I might just leave it to the side. We'll see what goes on. Because at the moment, there is definitely a mental drain when it comes to it, having to explain kind of the same things over and over again, and then at the end of the day, nothing improving. As always, let me know your thoughts, and I'll chat to you next time. Bye-bye. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tullio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Warthunder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.